folks. This is Atrida. I am most recently the Senior Director of Product Management from PayPal, and I've spent years working in the field of APIs and platforms. And rest came from my group at UC Irvine, and Roy Fielding was my senior. So let's today start talking about embedded payments, which is all based on sound payments platforms, sound API building, sound foundations for driving more transactions and money movement. So what am I covering today? I'm actually covering what is it? What is embedded payments? What is the size of embedded payments in the market globally today? How should we go about building it? And then I'm going to do some SWOT analysis on what's good about embedded payments, what should we keep in mind while we think about either integrating with payment service providers or building an API platform as a producer. I'm also going to be talking about some of the embedded payments use cases that are very prevalent in the market, or gives you new ideas, and then cover lastly a little bit of best practices and the future of embedded payments. So let's start. What are embedded payments in finance? So embedded payments actually refers to the integration of payment processing into another set of platforms or applications. Now, these integrations are most likely API integrations, and they are supposed to provide a very seamless customer experience for payment processing or e-commerce or banking to maybe a traditionally non-financial business vertical like transportation or healthcare. So it takes away the complexities that are involved in core payment processing and allows newer contexts to be built for traditional industries that are just trying to move towards digital payments. So how big is the market size? I have two numbers here. One is about the e-commerce market size. So if you look at Bain & Company's research, you would see that the e-commerce market size today is anywhere between $2.6 trillion, which is just 5% of US financial transactions in 2021. And this is supposed to grow to $7 trillion by the end of 2026. So you can see the amount of growth that is expected there. Then Allied Market Research, which also estimates another number, which does not include e-commerce, is about all other financial services that include banking or lending and other kinds of areas. That is about 54.6 billion in 2020, and it's supposed to grow at a cumulative growth rate of 28.7%. And you can see that it also will reach a total amount of about 722.7 billion by 2030. So you can see a healthy growth and opportunity in the market. So let's talk about how do we go about building this platform. So the most important thing to understand when you're thinking about building API platforms is who are you building it for, right? And that never goes away. You have to start thinking, okay, what kind of integrations are we expecting if we are the producers of these payment capabilities, right? Who's going to use it? How big are they? Where are they situated? What kind of regulatory compliance they have? How do I design these APIs, right? So that people can connect to me and start processing payments through me. So when you're building these API platforms, you are thinking about a very seamless and optimized customer experience for your clients. You're also trying to understand a little bit about, are your clients customers that are doing e-commerce? Are your clients, coming in to process B2B payments because, they want payments inside their ERPs, or, someone's moving money across a cross-border transaction for paying for certain goods. So all of these things have to be understood while you're building that API platform. Then once you have figured out what you're building, of course, there's going to be a roadmap involved there of what comes first, what are the first things you're going to build, and what are the next things you're going to build. And then you are going to then build, standard integration playbooks. You can also build, postman collections for these set of APIs to test out whether, your clients can integrate with lightweight APIs, and are they truly providing the value that they are seeking. And then you are also going to build it in a way in which some of these capabilities can be customized a little bit for their own industries. Again, it's hard to do that because there's so many nuances across various different industries. But clients are also looking for a tailored payment experience, completely white label, sometimes for their own payment processing needs. So you need to not only think about building APIs, but how are those APIs customizable or configurable over time. Now let's quickly look at some of the strengths and weaknesses of doing embedded payments. I think one of the biggest strengths of embedded payments is, it's seamless and it's convenient. You are bringing in a new context, like a payment context, inside your own industry vertical, and you want to provide your customers a very quick and convenient way to pay. It is the strongest intent on the web if you think about payments and money movement. So it is also a very good way to increase your customers' engagement and retention. Suddenly, you have an expanded customer base. There are people who want to come to your website and stay on your website because they find that now you're providing payment capabilities, and they find it very convenient because they can close their transactions on your website, or on the mobile phone. On the weaknesses side, well, you as you think about embedding someone else's APIs to process payments for you, there are certain things you have to keep in mind, right? You are going to lose some control and flexibility as to how much customizations you can build to make these payments happen. The second and very important thing with API integrations is security and fraud. So you have to understand, how much of this is covered by the payment service provider, how much of it you have to build on your own, and how do you stay regulatory? How do you do regulatory compliance? That's also very important because once you get into the world of payments, it's a highly regulated industry. And you have to ensure that your customers are safe, they can trust your capabilities to process payments for them, even though you are going through a standard PSP behind the scenes. And you can stay compliant and reduce fraud on your platform. On the opportunities and threats side of it, the biggest opportunity, as I was talking about, I was showing you the CAGR growth, is market growth. We see a lot of it happening over the next decade or so. It's also another avenue to start innovating. AI, Chat GPT, all of these things are now becoming more and more mainstream. And how do we bring about artificial intelligence to drive more insights for our customers, for our clients, for our merchants, is a big part of innovating. It could be blockchain or some other, biometric way of authenticating yourself. All of these things can be part and parcel of how you are, exposing your embedded payment services or consuming those services. You can also think about it as providing new revenue streams for your business. On the threat side, it's important to understand that there are many, many competitors that do payments today. There is a part of payment capabilities and APIs that are totally commoditized. Every competitor has that. And there is a part which is all about value-added services, which is where I believe the true differentiation lies between highly reputable and scaled out companies like PayPal, or some other ones who are just trying to come into play. The second important thing is consumers' behavior can change very rapidly sometimes. We saw that during COVID, where everybody stopped going out to stores and started moving online. And then as COVID died down, so did this, consumer behavior. So it's important to understand what impact will it have on your overall business. And then last but not the least, it's all about regulatory changes and to keeping up with them. And otherwise, it's easy to go out of business. So let's quickly look at the first use case that I'm going to walk you through, which is B2B embedded payments. Now, what does it mean? It basically means that in the business to business use case, I was actually building Silicon Valley Bank's banking as a service API capabilities, and they are still available on their developer portal that you can go and check out. But the idea there was, can we build a set of, payment capabilities, onboarding capabilities, lending capabilities, and open banking so that we can enable Silicon Valley Bank's core clientele, which is the innovation economy or comprised of various different tech and biotech startups, and allow them to transact for their own products. Now, this use case is about the same companies, their corporate finance departments, which are saying that they use ERPs every day, right? So they want to transact through SVB, make payments, but they want it very seamlessly integrated within their ERPs, like Oracle NetSuite or Sage Intacct. So how do you go about building that? I think the most important thing to understand is what is that middle connector between the ERP and the bank. So we went around and looked at various different partners that we could work with and built an integration with a Canadian startup called FiSpan that specializes in building these ERP connections and apps which allow you to do, accounts payables, accounts receivables, real-time transaction history, etc. So we started working with them, and the idea here is that a customer who is already working in an ERP would go to their marketplace, see the SVB app, which FiSpan will help build, use that app, get it approved, and implement it or integrate it inside their ERP, and then log into SVB through their accounts and start transacting by issuing ACH transactions, wire transactions, checks, etc., through these banking as a service platform APIs. And they also have an opportunity to actually get those transactions approved, go through a review cycle before those transactions actually are processed by the bank. So this is where most of I would say the meat of the integration lies on how do you plug the FiSpan ERP connectors and make them work with your SVB banking as a service APIs. Let's look at the next. Oh, this is how the embedded payments inside the ERP looks like. You can see that this is Oracle NetSuite here, and inside that, there is this SWB's. There's the SVB app that you have actually integrated into it. And then over here, you can see various different kinds of transactions, and you basically have a drop down to select your payment rail before you can actually process these transactions. So this is how the integration experience will look like. Now let's look at some of the B2C embedded payments experiences. I think the most well-known one, as far as my experience goes, is the PayPal checkout experience, which is the classic embedded payments acceptance, which is direct to consumer in this case, and could be used for e-commerce. So the way this works is, merchant has to start integrating with PayPal's checkout APIs, onboarding APIs, identity APIs, to start accepting PayPal payments on their website. So that's the part that happens on the merchant side of it. Then as that integration completes, the buyer comes in, selects certain items from a website, puts them in their cart, clicks on that PayPal experience or button that the merchant has integrated with, and logs into PayPal. And then from there on, they find their own funding instrument, and in their wallet, use that to pay for the transaction and complete the transaction on PayPal. After the buyer experience is completed, the control goes back to the merchant's website from where the checkout originated. And then, you will usually get a confirmation page saying that your transactions is complete. It looks simple, but there are so many different edge cases and exceptions here that you have to keep in mind while this is built. I still remember the days when we were building the new checkout API, which is today the de facto order API integration that's available on developer.paypal.com. And it took us many months to harden the API, understand all the different edge cases and corner cases, and build those exceptions within the API framework to ensure that we are not losing out on transactions or there are conversion drop-offs because of a new product that the merchants are integrating with. So this is one B2C. I also brought up another one, which I believe is a very good example here. You could see this is Uber. And within Uber also, you could see that on one end, we have all of Uber's business capabilities across, the ride share, the Uber Eats, and then, various other Uber businesses. And then on the other side, Uber has actually orchestrated across various different payment service providers and also have their own core payment processing rails that all come together to allow you to transact seamlessly when you are within the Uber's mobile app, any one of those. So that's another good embedded payments use case here. So now let's quickly look at some of the best practices in embedded payments implementation. So the most important thing to keep in mind while you go about doing this is that you have to partner with a very reputable payment service provider, somebody who can bring in the trust and safety that is required when you are transacting. Now, keep in mind, this is all with the lens of not producing APIs, but actually consuming those APIs. So the next important thing is to understand that if you as an industry vertical are trying to embed payments within your experience, whether it's the mobile experience or the web experience, how do you ensure that payments are regulatory compliant? That is very, very important because um, it comes without saying that you cannot have payments which are not, bound by those regulatory rules. Otherwise, it's not going to fly. So now the big question is, should you go with a payment service provider that gives you those capabilities out of the box, and you don't have to worry about keeping track of thousands of such rules? Or should you actually invest in building some of those rules because they are very custom to your industry vertical? So it depends on how much of it should the payment service provider give you, and how much of it you have to build on your own to ensure that seamlessness and regulatory compliance. Then the other very big thing that you have to keep in mind is, how do you make that payment experience as seamless as possible for your customers, right? You don't want them to have a very frictionful experience where they are like, oh yeah, it's a great capability, it's a lot of value add, but I don't see a way in which I can finish this transaction, right? If that happens, then you're going to lose that customer. So even though you try to do something good, the end result or outcome doesn't look that good. So it's important to understand what is called conversion. Are you truly converting that client on that payment experience? A fourth one, also remember that in the world of payments, consumers are very particular about the kinds of payments they like, right? So someone might say, hey, I am using a mobile wallet, I have an iPhone, and I want to use Apple Pay. So you would have seen pretty recently that PayPal has actually launched their default experience, PayPal payments checkout experience, where Apple Pay is an option that merchants can enable for their clients. So it's very important to provide the right set of payment options to your clients. The next one is test and optimize the payment experience. You have to understand that it's not just about integrating and going live. It is also a continuous process of testing and optimizing to ensure not just compliance parts of it, but also that everything is actually taken care of behind the scenes correctly, right? It could be transaction matching or accounts receivable for a B2B use case. It could be anything to do with accounting on the customer side of it. It could be how fresh is your transaction history, ensuring that most of these transactions are quickly available for your consumer to ensure that whatever they did is captured correctly. And then the last but not the least is also staying informed. You're trying to bring in something new for your industry vertical. How do you go about keeping up with all the different kinds of changes that are happening in the payments industry and consumer behavior around payments? So it's good to keep track of those things. So now let's look at the next one. So this one you would see is talking about what is the future of embedded payments. And you could see very clearly that you always start with the core payment solutions. You're talking about those commoditized capabilities, but you very quickly then move over to value-added payment services. Now, when you're thinking about value-added payment services for payments itself, you could have some new gateway capabilities. As I said, you could start thinking about various different other ways to pay, like RTP or real-time payments is a very good way to pay. Fed now is coming in. So how do you enable these new payment rails? These are all value-added payment services that you can think of. And then you can go and start thinking the number 3 or the third stage of this is value-added services that are beyond payments. So I think the biggest thing that I'm trying to say here is that the future of embedded payments also is actually beyond payments, which is you have to start thinking of other kinds of capabilities that are around the value-added payment services. It could be anything from keeping track of rewards and loyalty, like PayPal owns Honey, which is the top of the funnel e-commerce customer acquisition strategy, which mostly runs on rewards and payments. And the way it is integrated so seamlessly into the payments, you would see the payment transaction or the PayPal transaction values, right? So let's quickly move on and conclude here because I think I'm almost at time. So just wrapping up here, embedded payments is an area of API integrations that is poised to grow very rapidly. It offers several benefits, including increased convenience and improved customer experience. And it is also important to understand that as technology continues to advance, embedded payments are likely going to become even more prevalent. It's going to provide new opportunities to businesses for streamlining their operations and driving more revenue growth for them. Thank you so much for spending time to hear me out.